A very useful function, not in its own right, but for its usefulness in what it can provide to other functions, is the match function. Now it does have its drawbacks, but taking those drawbacks aside, it is still a useful function. What effectively it allows you to do is to check an item against the list, and it will tell you where in the list it appears. Taking our sales staff working file, if we wanted to search for a text value in the employee list, we could put that employee here, like a bit of a search criteria, and then in the row here, it will return which row in that list it appears in by using the match function. So equals match, open brackets. What am I going to look up in my list? Well, that's whatever's in that cell there, currently Mary. What's my lookup array? Well, it's that range there, which I happen to have given a name of employee. And then we have an optional match type, which for a straightforward text match, we don't actually need. So I'm going to close the brackets. So it's going to look in the employee list and tell me where Mary appears in that list relative to the start of the list. So effectively the first position is 1, the second is 2, the third is 3, etc. So return, and it tells me that Mary appears at row 74. Well, I can see her in row 6. So although she's in 7, she's in row 6 of the data. And if we scroll down to see what's in row 74, which is Excel 75, it's actually Kelly. Now the reason for that is because we haven't made use of the optional match type which we need here, and that is to say that it has to be an exact match. We can't go off looking for close matches. It's got to be exactly what I put in the search box. So that's a 0. And then if we return, we find it then tells us that Mary is in row 6. I could change Mary for any other text value in that list, and Tom is in row 8, John, row 15, Sam, row 16. We now know where in the list we're looking for. We have a slight drawback in this, in that if there are 2 Sams, it will only tell us the position of the first Sam, not the second. But having said that, it still has its uses. It's also very useful because it has a wildcard option. So if I want to search through that list for anybody whose name begins MI, then I can put MI and then the standard wildcard character of an asterisk, so MI asterisk, and then I can use the match function over here, equals match, using the MI asterisk, comma, look in the employee list, and it has to be an exact match. Even though I'm using a wildcard, we still use the exact match option here, and return, and it says row 4. And I can see that Michael is in row 4. Now the wildcards can be used at the beginning, the end, or in the middle of our searches. So I could put asterisk IO, and it says row 2 ends in IO, which is Mario. So that's with the wildcard in there. You can even use a question mark for a single wildcard character. So I could put MA question mark IO, and it will return the first matching data in the list, which happens to be Mario. The question mark can only be a single character. If you're looking to search for multiple characters, then that has to be the asterisk. But either will do, depending on what you're attempting to search for. Now, if we want to do a search on a numerical basis, which we can do on the salary or the date of birth, I could put 14,000 in here. And I want to know where in the salary list 14,000 appears. Well, I can use that match function again, equals match. That's my lookup value. And my list is the salary, and that also is a named range, just to make life a little easier. And the lookup type is an exact match. And it's in row 8, 14,000. And we can see row 8, which is Excel's 9, is 14,000. Obviously it doesn't return the value for here for Robert for 14,000 or anybody else who is 14,000. It finds the first match. Now there are 2 other match option types in here. Nearest a larger value, so that's not going to now look for 14,000, it's going to look for the nearest value that is larger than it. So it's equals match, open brackets, let's look up the 14,000. We're going to look that up in the salary named range, and my match type is one where the value that gets found is greater than the search option. So it's the value that's greater than 14,000. And return, and it returns row 1. And in fact, we're right, row 1 is greater than 14,000. Nearest smaller value equals match, open brackets, 14,000, comma, salary range, and we go less than, so the value is less than 14,000. and it returns row 12, which is there, 9.5, which is less than. But it's not necessarily the nearest smaller than, because 13,250 is closer. There is a secondary drawback here to using the nearest larger and the nearest smaller values, in that the data you're searching through must be sorted. So we would need to sort this data by the salary. Let's go to smallest to largest, and then you'll see we get an NA in the nearest larger value, but the nearest smaller value works out. So it comes down the list to find 14,000, and it says the nearest smaller value is in row 23. Row 23 contains 14,000. So the nearest smaller value is actually the same value because it's just gone to the next cell. If we go and sort the other direction, because you'll notice the nearest larger value has gone NA, so let's go largest to smallest. The nearest larger value falls into row 77, which is 78 XLYs, and again 14,000 because the values are the same. Let's just change so that there aren't two 14,000. Let's go 14,100. And then the nearest larger value will be 78. And if we sort ascending, row 22 is now the nearest smaller value. So we can see that the nearest smaller and largest does not really work very well where there's repeating values. This match function is useful for returning the index, and personally I would stick with exact matches. So we can use text and numeric exact matches to find out in the list where something is. Then the only drawback you need to worry about is the fact that it only finds the first occurrence in the list. But most of the time, that's the value you're trying to achieve anyway. So you might use the match embedded inside a VLOOKUP formula or a HLOOKUP formula to help further look up the right item that you're trying to achieve.